I wasn't met the way I thought I would be. There was silence in the house, and neither my wife Helen nor my kids could be seen. Michael Lewis and I have been married for 11 years. I looked around and saw that the house was quiet. There was a note on the table. "Mike, I'm sorry, I'm too scared to tell you this in person. I met someone else. Helen, love, the kids are with me and safe. The divorce papers are in the envelope under this note. As you can see, Helen, I'm not asking for anything." Needless to say, that was the end of my day and my life. I was swearing and stumbling around the kitchen while reading the divorce papers. Eventually, I gave up and fell into a chair. Helen was leaving me the house and all of our money. She was only taking clothes and toys for herself and the kids. The last thing they wanted was my signature on forms so her new boyfriend could adopt my kids. That made me really mad. It looked like it would happen. At least it told me that Helen had left me for Henry Castlake. I called my ex-wife. "Hey, Mike. Hi, Mike. What the hell is going on, Helen?" "Like I said in my note, I met someone else and fell in love with him." "Yeah, of course you did. No one just leaves a marriage and sleeps with a guy. At least it lets me know you two slept together. I just hope it wasn't in our bed." "No, please stop swearing and act civilized," Helen said. "To hell with civilized. You can divorce and stay with the asshole, but I'm not putting my kids up for adoption. Tell Mr. Big Shit he can go to hell." I ended the call. I went out to eat after taking a shower and changing. In my mood, I didn't want to cook. While the food was fine, I chose to go to the bar and have a few drinks. I thought I was due that much since today had been a mess. The boss of Cars Lake Construction Company was the man my wife left me for. I had worked for his company before, but that was about to change. Paul, my friend, saw me at the bar. "I don't see you around here very often, Mike. Did you manage to get away from your family for the evening?" "Something like that, Paul. I came back to an empty house with a packet of divorce papers." "Helen's divorcing you? Shit, I didn't see that coming." "Me neither, Paul. Me neither. She's moved in with Henry Cars Lake." "What do you mean, Henry Cars Lake of Cars Lake Construction?" "Yes, that's the one. I think she's in love with him." "What are you going to do, Mike?" "I'm going to give her a divorce. She doesn't want anything from me, so I'll sign the papers and get rid of her. There was another form she wants me to sign, but I already threw it in the trash." "What was the form?" Paul wanted to know. "She wants me to adopt the kids from him. That's not going to happen in this life," Paul said with a sneer. "One thing's for sure, Cars Lake can kiss my ass. I was supposed to start working for him on Monday. Fuck him. I'll find another job." I signed the papers for the divorce. The form I filled out so that someone could adopt my kids ended up in the trash. She begged me, but I wouldn't give in. In the end, she gave up. Lee was 8 years old and Chloe was 10 when they got divorced. Cars Lake made me angry, but I didn't want to go to jail for it. On Monday, I didn't show up for work. It's weird that no one was hounding me to do it. Some of my payback on Cars Lake happened without me having to do anything. Because I talked to Paul about it, it happened. Most of the area contractors said they wouldn't work with Cars Lake Construction after word got out. They saw that he had lied to me and refused to work with him as a way of repaying me. Old Henry did find other workers, but they were bad guys and the work was sloppy. Many times someone asked me to give them a price on the work. But when I learned it was for Cars Lake, I didn't even bother to send one. It was official after 6 months that I was divorced. Helen and Govniak got married 3 months after that. While they were on their vacation, I watched the kids for a week. To help them, I didn't take the kids. I thought a week would be better than the Saturdays I was getting. "Daddy, why did you send us to live with Mom and Henry?" Chloe asked. "What?" "I didn't send you. Your mother took you because she doesn't love me anymore. If it were up to me, you could have stayed here," I told her, reassuring her that it wasn't my choice. I was going to tell Helen about that. Helen rang the doorbell to pick up the kids, and she walked in, happy and tanned. "Stop lying, Helen. From now on, you tell the kids the truth, and if you don't, I will. They know now that I didn't ask you to take them in. If I could, I'd fight you for custody tomorrow." Helen left in rage. After being married for a long time, life as a single man seemed strange to me. Some of my friends tried to set me up on dates, but I really didn't want to go out with anyone. I missed love but didn't want to date, and I had no idea that my life was about to change again. People named Gary and Emily moved in next door right after Helen left me. They got a good deal on their house because it needed a lot of work. Emily was a secretary. and Gary had just retired from the army. They seemed like a nice couple, and we got along well. They talked with me when we saw each other. When Gary passed out at work, tragedy struck. Within 10 minutes, rescuers and a doctor arrived. The police said Gary was dead at the spot. There was a hematoma in Gary's brain, which was found during the exam. Emily was upset and by herself. I told her I felt sorry for her. People Gary knew had died, while people Emily knew were on vacation in Europe. I didn't want to leave her alone, so I took her to my house and made us both a drink. I watched Emily cry and heard her talk about her hopes for the future. Emily cried and then fell asleep on my couch. I put a blanket over her and slept in the chair in case Emily woke up in the middle of the night. The next morning, Emily was going at the same time that Helen dropped off the kids. "Being quick is good to see, Mike." "Helen, come on, that poor woman just lost her husband." Helen looked at me and then went to talk to the kids. I told them later that day why Emily was leaving the house. Lee didn't get it right, and Chloe looked sad. Em asked me to go to Gary's funeral, and I did. All debts in the UK have to be insured, so Emily won't be left without money. Since she had just lost her husband, this wasn't much comfort. Emily's parents came back from Europe and talked to me both after the service. Aside from my co-workers, I was Emily's only friend, so I told them I would take care of her. I offered to help Emily with any small tasks that needed to be done. They weren't big tasks, just things that kept the house in good enough shape to live in. When Helen dropped off the kids again, she stayed in the car. I didn't mind because it meant I didn't have to talk to her. We spent a lot of time together, but not as a couple. It was more like friends helping each other out. After almost a year, Lee was playing in the yard while I cleaned up my work van. Someone was talking to Emily when I turned around because I could hear them. I told him to stop being a bother, but I heard Emily say it was okay because she was going to hang the laundry out to dry on the lines. "Emily, would you like to have dinner with us tonight?" "Lee, you can't just invite people over for dinner. It's not people, it's Emily." We both laughed. Emily said she was free to come along. "Yes, that would be great, thank you." Lee left to tell Chloe that we had a guest over for dinner. I told him I was sorry for being so careless. It was clear that Emily was pretty good in the kitchen because she helped me make dinner. She sat with us for a while before going home and helped me clean up after dinner. "Thank you for dinner, Mike. I really enjoyed it. Thanks for accepting the invitation." I said goodbye to Emily with a hug and watched her walk home. It was when I heard her door lock that I went back inside. Chloe asked me with a smile, "She's so cute, Dad. Is Emily your girlfriend?" I told her, "No, Emily is just a friend and neighbor. But I thought it would be nice if she was my girlfriend." I didn't tell the kids about the thought, though. She picked up the kids on Sunday afternoon. I was sure they would tell her that Emily was coming to dinner with us. And I was right. When Helen picked up the kids again, she really paid attention and asked about Emily. Not that it's any of your business, but Emily is just a friend. Besides, you left me for an asshole, so why are you worried about me? I'm not worried, just asking, that's all. Yeah, well, you got what you wanted. What I do is none of your business. I didn't get everything I wanted. No, you didn't. If you mean I'm going to let a jerk adopt kids, forget it. It's not going to happen. So you might as well get used to it. I was just thinking. No, Helen, you weren't thinking. You left me for a life of luxury with him. Let him have his own kids if he wants them. That guy took my wife and ruined my marriage. He can never adopt those kids, Helen said with a pout as she walked home. I smiled because I knew I had made her mad. A year later, I hadn't seen Emily for a few weeks, partly because I was very busy. My friend Paul was rewiring a house for a young couple and asked me to make an offer on a complete plumbing rewire. My offer was accepted, and I had a busy few weeks getting everything finished. While working on the house with Paul, he kept me up to date with news. Carslake still had to use a lot of non-local professionals. Most of the local guys still avoided working for him. With the work on the house completed, I finally had some time to relax. I decided to take Emily out to dinner. She agreed, and we agreed on a time for Saturday night. When I walked in behind Emily, it took my breath away. She was a petite woman. She had a haircut that I called pixie cut. The dress she wore showed off her slender figure, and for the first time, I began to take an interest in her sexually. Dinner went great, and we spent a lot of time talking about our lives in general. Later that evening, I walked Emily to her door. "Thank you for a wonderful evening, Mike," I smiled, and before I could say a word, Emily stood on her tiptoes and kissed me. Not a polite peck, but a full, open-mouthed, tongue-in-cheek kiss. "Wow, I didn't expect that," I struggled to catch my breath. "Ask me with you again, and see where it takes you." Emily smiled and said, "Good night," before kissing me politely on the cheek. Emily and I spent more and more time together until she sold her house and moved in with me. The kids thought it was great that I was dating, and I knew they would tell Helen about it. From what Chloe said, her mother wasn't impressed. Heck, she didn't want me. But Emily did. A year later, Emily and I were still together. After a few years, Chloe told me that she was getting married. The night before, her boyfriend Josh had proposed. As her father, I asked if they needed help paying for the wedding. "We didn't think we would need it, but now we do," she said. I looked a little confused until Chloe explained that Henry had agreed to pay for it. After we talked about everything with him and my mom, he told us the news. Henry agreed to pay for the wedding as long as he was the one to walk me down the aisle. "No way," I said, "that's your job." Henry then said he wasn't going to help pay for it. Chloe looked angry. I was mad at Cars Lake for doing that. She asked to talk to me alone, so I let her. We went outside into the yard. "Mike, we have the rest of the money from selling my house in the bank. Please use it to pay for your expenses. Chloe deserves it." "I know, Emily, but it's your money. I can't ask you to spend it on Chloe." "Yes, you can. Now go tell that poor girl that'll do it." Chloe was thrilled when I told her the news. We had agreed on a budget and everything they wanted came in under it. The next day, Chloe called me to say that Henry was very angry and that Helen was also not happy. We were sitting in the yard one afternoon when Lee showed up out of the blue. He told them he had to go because he was sick of hearing his mom and Henry fight. Emily inquired, "Are they still arguing about the wedding?" "No, it's something else. As far as I can tell, Henry isn't doing his bedroom duties." I let out a laugh. I was glad Helen broke up with me for someone who can't do what he's supposed to do when it counts. "The walls in the house are as thin as paper, Dad. I can hear them at night." "I think Mom is tired of Henry not doing well in bed," Lee stated. As we drank beer, we laughed about what happened. Lee stayed the night with us so that there wouldn't be a fight at home. She wasn't happy on Chloe and Josh's wedding day. Chloe told her that Henry and she would sit behind Emily and me in church. Nothing went wrong with the service. At the gathering, I agreed to have Helen sit at the head table. However, Henry sat with Emily, Robert, Gary, and Lee. After everyone had spoken, the chefs moved a few tables out of the way so there would be room for dancing. Josh and Chloe went first in the first dance. Emily and I, as well as Helen and Henry, joined them. We were at the bar later that night, and Gary and Robert were sitting with one of Chloe's girls and her kids. Emily said yes when Lee asked her to dance. Helen walked over to me after I smiled and told her, "Go for it." I could tell Helen had been drinking, and I knew this was not going to end well. He said, "Look at them together. She looks young enough to be Lee's girlfriend, even though she had 2 boys of her own. Emily still looks the same as the first day we met." Helen, on the other hand, had not aged well and had gained weight. Her dress was low-cut in the back and showed off several rolls of fat. Henry was obese and losing his hair. They were a perfect match. "Don't get me started, Helen. Jealousy doesn't suit you. Besides, we're divorced, so you're no longer authorized to comment." "On my life." "Jealous? Jealous of her? God, she looks like she still has school to go to. I think she'll be fine when she's fat and has a bust worth talking about." I looked at Helen in shock and told her, "Don't talk about my wife that way. Emily is more of a woman than you ever were. Helly, think about it. When was the last time you had good sex?" I didn't answer right away. Henry joined us and said, "I had great sex last night, and you know what? I might have more tonight." Helen was shocked. "You see, Helen, when you left me, you thought you were trading me for something more valuable. Maybe I was, maybe I wasn't. As for me, I just moved on. I have my own life now, a wife who loves me for who I am, 2 wonderful children on top of the 2 I already had. Life is as good as it can be for me right now. Can you say the same?" I left, leaving them to engage in goldfish. I danced with Emily to slow music. One of the ladies pulled Lee out on the dance floor. Emily asked in a whisper, "What was that at the bar?" as we danced. "Kiss me, I'll tell you later," we said as we kissed.